Hello again, friends, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. Final Four report today here on GCR. Emerson Phillips with Gamecock great Joe Rhett. And Joe, the big weekend has finally arrived. South Carolina making its first ever appearance in the Final Four. And it's not just a men's team, Joe. It's the women's team, too. A double Final Four weekend for Gamecock basketball.
No doubt it's an exciting time for so many of us Gamecock fans. Both teams, both men's and women's playing this late in the season. You don't get to see that too often. Not many schools or institutions get to do that, and we are one of the few teams that have been allowed to do that. So, so exciting for just Gamecock sports in general. But I'm excited, man. Don't get any better than this. Getting to see the men's and the women. Hopefully, the women get started off tonight against a very, very tough Stanford team that has always been perennially powerhouse when it comes to women's basketball. So it'll be a tough task for these women tonight, but I certainly believe with our size and our ability to get to the basket, I think we should handle this Stanford team tonight.
South Carolina women play at 7:30 tonight against Stanford in the first national semifinal. It's at American Airlines Arena in Dallas, Texas. The game will be on ESPN2. The Gamecocks 31-4, Stanford 32-5. Stanford came from 16 down to beat Notre Dame in the Elite Eight, and 6 times this year, Joe, they have come from 7 or more points down to win, including 4 of their last 5 games. So Stanford very much a come-from-behind type of team, and an interesting history between Dawn Staley and Stanford head coach Tara Vanderveer. Staley is 0-5 in her career against Tara Vanderveer. Stanford beat South Carolina in the Sweet 16 in 2012. Stanford came to Columbia and beat the Gamecocks early in the 2013 season. So Dawn Staley, one of the biggest names in women's basketball history, has never beaten Stanford head coach Tara Vanderveer. And it's interesting, Joe, that when Dawn Staley was on the 1996 U.S. Olympic team that won the gold medal in Atlanta, the head coach of that team was Tara Vanderveer. So Dawn Staley and Coach Vanderveer know each other extremely well.
Yes, they're very, very familiar with each other. Dawn has been around a long time through her playing days in college and through all her long history throughout the Olympics. So, yeah, they definitely are familiar with each other. But it's kind of hard to believe that she hasn't done too well against her so far. But it's still early in Dawn's career. Vanderveer, she's been around for a long, long time, but I think that tide will definitely turn. Hopefully it will turn tonight and get that first W against her. Stanford is tough. Those teams have put out a lot of WNBA players, have a lot of great players throughout the years, and, we'll see. Hopefully this team is ready. Those other losses have nothing to do with this team today, so hopefully they can put that out the back of their mind, something they don't have to worry about. If they just go out and handle their task at hand, do what they need to do, I think this USC women's team can get into that final game, which would possibly be Connecticut.
Gamecock's second trip to the Final Four in the last 3 years, lost in the semis 2 years ago to Notre Dame in a close ball game. And, Joe, I thought it was interesting also that Dawn Staley obviously played her college ball at Virginia. She's one of the top 3 women's players of all-time college basketball, and she had her season ended twice when she was at Virginia in the Final Four by Stanford, coached by Tara Vanderveer. So, the history between Staley and Vanderveer, very interesting. 90 and 92, Stanford beat Virginia with Dawn Staley on that Virginia team, and both years Stanford went on to win the national championship. So maybe tonight will be the charm for Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks. South Carolina led lately here by Kayla Davis, the sophomore guard. She was the Stockton region most outstanding player, 3 straight 20-plus point games in the tournament. And, Joe, she has really improved her play since the SEC tournament, 18 points a game, shooting 52%, and all this with Elena Coates out due to injury. And, of course, Asia Wilson, SEC Player of the Year, first-team All-American, and a finalist for every National Player of the Year award.
Yes, Kayla Davis has definitely stepped up her game. I don't want to diminish what Elena Coates has meant to this team for the past 4 years, but somehow this team is really stepping up along with her and Gray. Elena somehow, her presence, certain games she's needed. There was a lot of games she was needed because the post presence between her and Asia Wilson. But right now, you got 2 girls that can penetrate. That somehow the lane is open up for them. They're allowed to get to the basket. Their confidence is going a little bit now, and they don't have to so much concentrate on getting the ball inside right now. And now you can see how talented these 2 young ladies are on the perimeter, especially Kayla Davis. She's just when one of your troops go down, somebody has to step up, and she definitely has stepped up in a big way while Elena Coach has not been in there, and that's by being aggressive. She got a lot more room out there on the perimeter, and she's just been taking advantage of the situation.
So it's South Carolina and Stanford, 7:30 tonight, Friday night on ESPN2, and that'll be followed by the second semifinal, UConn and Mississippi State. And, Joe, the story of the women's Final Four this weekend is, can anybody beat UConn? They've won 111 straight games, 4 straight national titles. Mississippi State has had the best year in the history of their program. They're 33-4, but UConn beat Mississippi State last year in the Elite Eight. Joe, they beat them by 60 points in the Elite Eight. They beat them 98-38.
I don't think that's going to happen this year. This is a much better Mississippi State team, and I think this team is very hungry. That last loss that you just recalled of, it's probably been in the back of their minds and for the past year, and that's something they probably been feeding on. And now they got the opportunity to face this team again. And this is a very tough Mississippi State team. We saw this team several times this year. They're a big team. They play tremendously hard. And they're going to present a little bit. They're going to slow this Connecticut team up a little bit. Will they beat them? I'm not 100% sure. But, like we always say, that's why they play the game, because anything can happen. And, so Mississippi State's going to be hungry. It's going to be a hungry, fiery team. It won't be 60, but it can get ugly, but I doubt it'll be that bad.
All right, we'll find out tonight. National championship game for the women coming up Sunday at 6 o'clock from Dallas, Texas. Now, the men, Joe, let's take a look at South Carolina Gonzaga. We previewed it a little bit earlier this week here on Gamecock Central Radio. Saturday night, 6:09 tip-off at University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. The top 2 teams in the country in terms of defensive efficiency. Gonzaga has only been beaten one time this year. South Carolina comes in with a school record 26 wins. The Gamecocks are 26-10. And, Joe, everybody's on Gonzaga. Nobody picking the Gamecocks here because of Gonzaga's front court size. They got this big man, 7'1", 300 pounds. And Gonzaga wants this guy to pitch a tent in front of the rim Saturday night, Joe, and have an all-he-can-eat buffet.
Yes, that's the word, and I like the situation that we're in. I want us to still remain underdogs. I want everybody to be against us as more motivation for this team. I know Frank and those guys don't want to use some of this stuff, but hey, anything to motivate this team to try to pull up this big, huge, monumental upset, I'm all for it. The things that you do that counter this big size that they have, which I think we got the remedy for. We got 2 guys that can run the floor. Gonzaga, they are a big team all the way around. But if you get Mike Coach Saw and Chris Silver to run that floor and put a lot of pressure on that guy to try to keep up with them guys on both ends, offensively, we just need to run. Get them guys moving, get them uncomfortable. And also on defense, we need to sprint back and beat him to the spot. And don't let him just sit down there in the middle of the paint. And we could beat him and make him work a little bit harder. I think this team can do it because we got the athletes, we got a perimeter team, we got just a hungry team right now that's really motivated. That's I wouldn't say playing on borrowed time, but nobody's picking us to win. So I hope this team is really motivated, and hopefully we can come out there and continue to win. We're the only team that has the least amount of pressure right now, so hopefully we can continue this.
Yeah, nobody's on the Gamecocks this weekend, I do not believe. Joe, these are 2 of the best defensive teams in the nation, and both are exceptionally good at defending the 3. Gonzaga is number 4 in the nation. Opponents shooting just 29% from 3, and the Gamecocks are number 8 in the country. Opponents shooting just 30%. So points figure to be at a premium, and I wanted you to talk about the building this game is being played in, Joe. It's the University of Phoenix Stadium. It's the home of the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL. This is a football stadium. They're going to put a basketball court down in the middle of it. And talk about playing in a bigger arena like that, Joe. Some folks say it affects depth perception for shooters. For outside shooters, it becomes a little bit harder to shoot. What do you think?
It will be. It's going to be adjustment. The good thing about it is it's new to both teams. It's not like neither one of them is used to it at all. Just shooting in those type of arenas are very difficult because you normally used to having that crowd right behind the basket somewhat, and in this stadium you don't have that. Everybody's going to be a little bit distanced, and I believe that from what I hear that the court is raised up as well. So it's going to be adjustment for both teams. So it's not like it's definitely not an advantage. We have played at Vandy. It's not, of course, Vanderbilt's not as big, but it's a different type of court. So maybe that will help us to a certain extent. But going back to the defense that you were talking about, both teams, to me, honestly, Gonzaga had played. I don't think they had the resume that South Carolina has as far as defense. So they didn't play some of the great teams. I think the SEC proved to be one of the best conferences this year, and we are battle tested. And I think just our competition was a little bit better to me than what Gonzaga played. So I think their defensive numbers are somewhat skewed. But are they tough? Yes, they are tough. But they didn't play. I don't think is as good a teams that we have played throughout this year.
6:09 tip tomorrow night in Phoenix or Glendale, Arizona. The Gamecocks a 6.5-point underdog against Gonzaga. And that line is held pretty steady throughout the week. I've heard that it's 7 depending on where you look. But the Gamecocks are decided underdog here for this national semifinal tomorrow night against Gonzaga. And that game will be followed by North Carolina and Oregon, the second national semifinal. North Carolina is a 5-point favorite there. UNC, of course, lost in the championship game last year to Villanova. North Carolina is the top rebounding team in the country. Joe, they get offensive rebounds on almost 42% of their misses. That's offensive boards. They rebound 2 of about every 5 misses that they put up, and they didn't shoot it well in the Elite Eight win over Kentucky, just 3 of 15 from 3. But North Carolina's got so much size, they're going to be tough to handle inside and on the glass. And the Oregon Ducks making their first Final Four appearance since the first ever NCAA tournament. Only 8 teams made the tournament back in 1939 when Oregon last made the Final Four, but they've won 15 tournament games in the last 5 years, Joe. So this is a team that's been through the tournament in recent years, and they like to shoot the 3. They've taken more threes in the tournament than anybody else, and they've made more threes than anybody else. So a little bit of contrasting styles here. Oregon doing well to make the Final Four after Boucher, one of their top players, got hurt late in the year.
Yeah, definitely contrasting styles. They're not a big team at all. I think they run like 6'6", but they're all about the same height. But they're so athletic. They want to run. They want to get out and shoot threes. But to me, I think that what the University of North Carolina hang their hat on, but Roy Williams is taking advantage of their size. You got the mixed kid, you got Hicks, and you got the freshman Bradley coming off the bench. Those guys are huge, and something their size and their athleticism. They're not only big, but they're very athletic as well. And I think that Oregon's just not big enough to hang with those guys. They'll hang in there for a minute, but eventually that size and athleticism of North Carolina will eventually wear this Oregon team down and stop them from getting out and making those runs.
All right, the men's national championship will be Monday night. That game generally gets started after 9 o'clock on Monday night. So, man, what a run-up to the Final Four here, Joe. We double-dipping on the Final Four for the Gamecocks.
Yes, it is. It doesn't get any better than this. And, hopefully this won't be our last run. But, we need to enjoy the moment. Gamecock fans, enjoy the moment and continue to support both the women and men, and hopefully we can, you can talk on tomorrow and Saturday and talk about both teams going to the finals. So I'm excited, and I believe in this team. They've covered. The men have covered so far, being underdogs. So I don't see why that's going to change, because our defense is so good, and I think that we're going to give Gonzaga something they haven't seen before.
All right, University of South Carolina, just the 10th school ever to have both their men's and women's teams make the Final Four in the same year. Everybody enjoy the weekend. Soak it all in. Joe, have a great weekend and enjoy the ball games.
You do the same. We'll talk later, buddy.
All right, that's Gamecock great Joe Rhett, and I'm Emerson Phillips. Thanks for joining us for this Final Four preview on Gamecock Central Radio.